Have automatic anonymity in the media, or is a campaign to prevent unauthorized images appearing unworkable and a threat to the interests of a free press? Obviously, some of those in the public eye mind less than others. But Hannah Weller, who, as the wife of musician Paul Weller, found herself and her young children targeted by photographers, was outraged and set up Protect, the campaign for children's privacy. She was shocked to find papers can print unpixelated images of children without permission. Today, the campaign was raised in the House of Lords.
What can be done to ensure that similar rules, which refer more specifically to this type of photography, are included in the Print Media Code of Practice and adhered to in order to protect children from unwanted exposure and potential harm?
The proposal would mean unidentified children in crowds or public events could be seen, but any other shots would need explicit permission or a clear public interest. But the National Union of Journalists says this is unworkable. The union's Photographers' Council states banning photographs of children, all children, without prior parental consent would have a chilling effect on a free press. There is a general public interest in both freedom of expression and in being able to photograph society generally and in public places. Well, I'm joined now by Hannah Weller. Thanks very much for coming into the studio.
Thank you for having me.
So you took the Daily Mail to court.
Yes.
And you won.
Yes.
And you got £10,000, which is a lot of money. Why take it to the next level? Why take it to the level of legislation?
The reason I launched the campaign is because I feel that any family who find themselves in the position that we were in shouldn't have to go through this lengthy, worrying and costly process to secure our children's right to privacy, which is already enshrined in the Human Rights Act and in the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, is already understood widely across media guidelines that you shouldn't expose children in this way without consent, and yet they're not adhered to. So I feel that it's important that there's clear legislation protecting us. I think it should be the government's job to protect our right to protect our children in law.
But as you say, there are so many guidelines already, and arguably they are adhered to in many cases, perhaps in most cases. How would this actually be workable? Because let's say, for instance, it snows next week and we want to have a picture of kids playing in Regent's Park. You know, we'd have to pixelate all the faces of the children, or have to go to their parents to ask individual permission. I mean, for the working press, that's unworkable.
But that's not what the campaign's asking for. What we're asking is that where a child is identified in a photograph, which would not be the case in a general photograph of scenery in
well, you look closer at the picture and you can identify the kid. I mean,
but if you're not identifying them by name or association, that poses no direct risk to the child, and therefore would be exempt to a law.
So it's only about children that are actually identified by name?
Yes.
So is it only about celebrity children, really?
No, it can be. This is an issue that can affect any family who happens to find themselves the victims of crime, for example. There are any family could, in unfortunate circumstances, find themselves thrust into the media spotlight and could find their children's faces plastered on the front page of the tabloids. So it could affect anybody. It's not just a celebrity issue.
And did you find that before you took the Daily Mail to court that you were harassed constantly by the paparazzi?
No, not constantly. I think that the paparazzi take more of an interest in my husband, as it should be, than they do our family. But when it crossed the line into taking an interest into my children's private life, that's when we found it necessary to go to court.
So you spoke to the Deputy Prime Minister, Nick Clegg, about all this.
Yeah.
You've gone to the highest level of government. I mean, how realistic is any new legislation on this, or is this a bit of a token gesture?
Well, I've been getting a lot of support from all sorts of politicians across the parties. I'm keen for this not to become a political issue. I have had support from all the major parties. And Nick Clegg's team were very supportive, and I'd like to, now that this question has been asked in the Lords, I'd like to hear what the government has to say about it, what their official line is on it.
But, you know, there's been a lot of debate in the last year about the constraints on the press, I mean, the hacking trial and all the rest of it. Do you think, or rather, let me put it this way, do you see that when journalists are worried about the freedom of speech, the principles on which democracy is based, that they have a point there?
I think that it's a valid fear, but if they understood fully what the campaign is asking for, those fears would be reassured, because we're not asking for any sort of infringement on freedom of speech. I think that it's incredibly important that we have a free press in this country. But to ask photographers, to ask publishers to seek consent where deciding to publish photographs of children and identify them, or if not, pixelate. That doesn't infringe on press freedom, because you're still able to publish any article you wish.
Right.
Just seek consent or pixelate the photograph of the child to protect their identity.
We've run out of time, unfortunately. Hannah Wheeler, thanks very much indeed. John.